President Trump is leaving open the possibility of U.S. military action in Nigeria as he accused the nation of not stemming violence against Christians there. The president has asked the Defense Department to prepare options that could include troops on the ground or airstrikes. The situation on the ground, however, is far from straightforward. Violence in Nigeria does affect Christians, but also Muslims, and is driven by religious, ethnic, and resource-based tensions in that country. Joining me now, Fareed Zakaria, host of Fareed Zakaria GPS on CNN. He also has a new book, Age of Revolutions, releases in paperback tomorrow. Make sure to get your copy. They're always, Fareed, you're so good at just making us understand what's happening globally. Let's talk about what's happening with Trump in Nigeria. He's suddenly suggesting potentially putting troops on the ground or airstrikes. He's already threatened strikes inside Venezuela, and we've been seeing the multitude of strikes on boats in international waters, killing more than a dozen people. For a guy who is insisting he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for stopping wars, how do you read what's happening now?
It seems very impulsive and emotional. He possibly saw something on TV. It is very strange. The Nigerian situation is exactly as you said, Sarah, very complicated. A lot of the violence people have heard about in Nigeria, Boko Haram, that terror group that took those school children, we all remember. That was mostly Muslim on Muslim violence. Those are jihadi groups often taking, killing Muslims, not in all cases, but in many of them. There is Muslim Christian violence, as you say. Some of it is based on farmers versus goat herders. The current president, Tinubu, has actually been trying his best to diffuse that kind of violence, and is himself an exemplary example of Nigeria's kind of multi-religious tradition. He is Muslim, the president of Nigeria. He's married to a Christian woman who is an ordained minister, and he often talks about how that marriage is part of what he's trying to do. Nigeria is 50% Christian, 50% Muslim. So it's an odd place for President Trump to interject himself, particularly militarily. I suspect, like many of President Trump's, emotional outbursts, that will not actually lead to military action. That could set off a kind of tinderbox in Nigeria. But we just have to wait and see. With President Trump, it's often you're trying to mind read this one man.
Yeah, and that can be quite difficult. I do want to talk to you about speaking of President Trump, what he told 60 Minutes, particularly when it comes to those nuclear tests that he is talking about doing after some more than 30 years where these tests just have not happened. Let me let you listen to what he told Norah O'Donnell.
So why do we need to test our nuclear weapons?
Well, because you have to see how they work. You do have to. And the reason I'm saying testing is because Russia announced that they were going to be doing a test. If you notice, North Korea is testing constantly. Other countries are testing. We're the only country that doesn't test, and I don't want to be the only country that doesn't test.
I was surprised to hear him say we have to see a chain reaction with Russia and China.
Is the exception. But the major nuclear powers have tended to believe that they can figure out whether or not these weapons work without doing these underground tests of